When comedian Bill Murray began his career a number of years ago, he started off in a small little club in Chicago, and he bombed. He was a complete failure, booed out of the whole club. He wrote that he was so depressed that he walked toward Lake Michigan to end his life. But somehow he ended up in front of the Art Institute, and he walked inside. And there was a painting of a simple peasant woman working in a field with a sunrise behind her. He remembered always loving that painting. He saw it that night and he said to himself, "Look, there's a girl there without a whole lot of prospects, but the sun's coming up and she's got another chance at it." So he thought to himself, "I'm a person too, and I will get another chance every single day." So after gazing at that painting, Murray decided to live. As we continue to celebrate Black History Month, it reminds me of a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. He said, "We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope." Well, I think we all know that life is full of finite disappointments, that maintaining hope is a lifelong challenge. Jeremiah, in that first reading, our responsorial psalm, both tell us, "Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose hope is in the Lord." And they are telling us that we have to find our hope in a power greater than ourselves. And Jesus in the gospel gives us great hope. Those who are hungry will be filled. Those who weep will laugh. The world is filled with finite disappointments. And as we call ourselves believers, we are challenged and we are called to cling to and to spread infinite hope. There's a great line in Heather Morris's New York Times bestseller, The Tattooist of Auschwitz, where the main character in this true story that's fictionalized says this. He said, "Choosing to live is an act of defiance, a form of heroism." Well, Lel Sokolov, in April of 1943, he's a Slovakian Jew, was transported to Auschwitz. He spoke several languages, so he becomes the tattooist. And he's tasked with permanently marking his fellow prisoners. He's imprisoned for 2.5 years, and he witnesses, of course, horrific atrocities and barbarism. But also he witnessed incredible acts of bravery and compassion. He risked his life to exchange the jewels and the money that he found from murdered Jews for food to keep his fellow prisoners alive. He altered prisoners' tattoos to keep them from the gas chambers, and he helped doomed men pull off daredevil escapes. Well, while he was at Auschwitz, he fell in love with another prisoner, Gita. And they both vowed that they would survive and marry. Under the darkest of circumstances, that true story is a testament to clinging to infinite hope that enabled those who survived to endure the unimaginable. They chose to live, and they vowed to live, and they survived, and they married. And Gita died in 2003, and it was then that Lael began to tell his story to Heather Morris. And it became part of this New York Times bestseller, The Tattooist of Auschwitz. Many people today get depressed like Bill Murray, and many people wonder at times if life is worth it. Our challenge, all of us, our challenge is to figure out how we live with our finite disappointments. There's a recent article in Investor's Daily Bulletin about life expectancy. And it's been a given that since America began industrializing in the 1800s, that each generation would live longer than the one that came before. But surprisingly, since 2014, there's an alarming reversal that's taking place, with life expectancy slipping every single year. And the CDC director, Robert Redfield, wrote this. He said, "Life expectancy gives us a snapshot of the nation's overall health, and these sobering statistics are a wake-up call that we are losing too many Americans too early and too often to conditions that are preventable." So we all have to ask ourselves, why are so many young Americans, mostly male and in the prime of their lives, engaging in such self-destructive behavior? Well, certainly we know that the opiate crisis and the plethora of guns available are part of the problem, but there really is a much deeper crisis that's hitting us. George Washington University disease prevention expert William Dietz stated, "I really do believe that people are increasingly hopeless, and that leads to drug use, and it potentially leads to suicide." So we must ask ourselves, what is contributing to this hopelessness? And many people are beginning to realize that the social media is making large numbers of people, particularly the vulnerable young, depressed. Researchers tell us that there's a sense that for today's younger generation, that life no longer holds the wonder and the beauty that it did for earlier generations. One researcher even stated it this way. He said that if the movie It's a Wonderful Life were to be remade today, it might be retitled It's a Tedious Chore. So we have to ask, are young people losing the hope of finding deeper meaning amid all the wealth and opportunity that our society provides? And if so, how sad is this for the wealthiest nation in the world? So perhaps we Americans, who are busier and less family-oriented now than perhaps ever, need to begin and restart a conversation with ourselves and with our youth about hope and about coping with the finite disappointments that impact all of us. We need to find some kind of common ground, bring families back together again, re-engage with the community and long-ignored friends, turn off the TV, put down the cell phone, and above all, we need to talk to each other, not simply text each other or email each other. There are way too many Bill Murrays in society today. That young peasant woman in the painting seems to have few prospects, but the sun is on her back. It tells her there's a new day that gives her new chances all the time. Heather Morris, who wrote The Tattooist of Auschwitz, asked Lael and Gita's son, Gary, to write an afterword for the novel. So he wrote this. As part of his afterword, he wrote that when he was 16 years old, his father lost his business. They lost everything. And as his mother was packing up to move, after losing everything, he writes that he noted that she was singing, and he wondered how she could sing when everything was hopeless for them. And she told him with a big smile on her face that when you spend years not knowing if you were going to live the next 5 minutes, there is not much that you can't deal with. Somehow we have to help ourselves and our young people understand that there are strong men and women who survived and who continue to survive the unimaginable, choosing to live life as an act of defiance against all the chaos and the evil in the world. We need to have a conversation with each other as adults and our young people. And we're here because we need to deepen our faith. We need to share this faith with them. We need to help them understand that the promise we heard in that gospel that Jesus gives to us is real. Those who are hungry will be filled. Those who weep will laugh. And help them try to figure out, and ourselves too, how to deal with our finite disappointments and never, ever lose infinite hope.